Well, here's two words my dad never wanted to hear. I'm back! After a long stint focusing on some real life stuff and a vacation seeing the girlfriend in America where I managed to be in the nearby vicinity of only 4 acts of gun violence that I'm aware of, that's not even an exaggeration, I've at last come home, brushed off that film I was making for an early screening, and finally managed to find some free time on my hands, so I'm just itching to get back to YouTube. I should probably warm up a little first, go into it slowly, not cover something massively divisive, something short and snappy that's not going to generate loads of comments from particularly awful fandoms, and oh fuck, you all voted Star Wars in that poll. I've never been able to make a Star Wars video that isn't approximately 5 million years long. Well, no matter what I say on this one, half the internet is going to hate me, so let's just tear off the band-aid, or as we call it correctly in Britain, a plaster, and get the gut punch over real quick. I loved it. Yeah, maybe not what a lot of you were expecting, although you should probably have seen that coming based on the video title. I know that some of you really wanted me to tear this apart, so sorry to the 50% of you I disappointed with this statement. At least you have something in common with my father now, so there's that. Now I will say before I get started with the actual review and discussion component of this video that this will be heavy on spoilers since the film has been out so long now, and I kinda want to talk about some of the big issues people have with it and why I don't have those same issues. I suppose one advantage of being so late to review a piece of media is that you can directly debate with the discourse that follows its release. Had I got this review out day one like I wanted to, then I'd have just naively uploaded my positive feelings towards this and have been genuinely shocked when I awoke to significantly more death threats than usual. I honestly didn't think, hey, that was a canny good Star Wars movie, that would be a hot take, and yet, well, here we are. At this point I can't even really review the film. Not in the traditional sense, because every positive thing I could possibly have to say about it comes with this sort of surrounding baggage of a million people on the internet having already torn apart those same things I found to be positives to a microscopic level like a pack of angry tiny wolves. And I'm not criticising those people, they totally have every right to do that. But it would be weird to not at least acknowledge their arguments at this point, right? Especially since, while it is fine to dislike or even hate a movie, what certainly isn't fine is the weird sense of entitlement that seems to have swarmed in a particularly ugly side of the Star Wars fandom, who do such things as start up anti-Last Jedi petitions, which is adorable, and send abuse and death threats to the creator, which isn't so adorable, really. It's kinda cunty, actually. Dislike the movie for sure, but don't be bellends about it. I mean, calm your passions, aye? I really didn't like Rogue One and Godzilla, but I'm not about to personally have a pop at Gareth Edwards. Dude's probably a nice fella, and no one deserves that kind of shtick. So at this point, I suppose what was once going to be a review is almost a rebuttal to common criticism? A think piece? A takedown of fandom culture? I don't know what it is really. I just want to talk about why I liked it, and hopefully manage to do so without 1,000 messages wishing I had cancer. Certainly not counting on that happening though. So anyway, I suppose I should actually talk about The Last Jedi now. Firstly, it's probably a good idea to quite clearly state that although I liked it, a hell of a lot even, I'm by no means defending it as this perfect, untouchable 10 out of 10 movie that is worthy of all our praise and possibly the formation of a cult where every one of us prays to a mosaic of Rian Johnson twice daily. This film is flawed. Majorly flawed, in fact. It's just that these flaws didn't stop me massively enjoying the overall end product. I think my biggest issue with it is that it didn't need to be that old favourite runtime of mine standing in at 2.5 fucking hours. Especially since the Rose and Finn subplot where they wander off to a casino for what feels like 3/4 of that is, make no mistake about it, pretty fucking dreadful. It's made far more awful by the fact that I enjoyed most other aspects of the film so much, but even with that juxtaposition of quality potentially colouring my opinion, I still think I'd have hated this regardless. It has some interesting components scattered throughout. It sets up what I feel is an extremely strong final shot, it briefly touches on ideas such as the monetization of war and dark elements of the resistance, and it probably captures the film's theme of failure better than any other moment of the movie when the plan, at the last minute, in what felt like a refreshing subversion of expectations, simply didn't work. The problem lies in the fact that these gifts aren't wrapped up in shiny decorative paper so much as toilet roll, because the actual plot surrounding these intriguing moments is some of the most unnecessarily dragged out boring prequel level on the nose crap I've ever seen. It wants to be a tale of working class oppression with a bit of romance and adventure, but it's so blatant in its delivery that it feels like you're being force fed. The moment where Rose talks of being out of place on the high-class casino planet and Finn is all ignorant like, yo, but this place is so beautiful and absolutely in no way an obvious and ridiculous exaggerated caricature of the capitalist fat cat's utopian vision. How could you possibly hate it here? I mean, really? This wholesome high-stakes gambling den was so face-slappingly insulting that it was borderline hilarious. I audibly laughed at Rose's follow-up dramatic delivery of, maybe it's great on the surface, but look closer. Which in turn was followed by Finn grabbing the nearby telescope and literally looking closer. What? I was half expecting Rose to smack him across the head and say, I meant metaphorically, you absolute gimp. But no, the film intended it sincerely, as we then see that, oh no, they're abusing the alien horses, and I can totally see that now that I've looked through this telescope. Oh, it's so shady underneath. In a moment that can only be described as space ferngully. Like, come on, abusing horses is so obviously sinister, you might as well have had him find a puppy kicking pit. Oh, and Rose is the worst. I'm sorry if you like her, but I just think she's such an awful character. Her performance is good, with Kelly Marie Tran doing the absolute best with the terrible stuff she's been given, but my god, what a nothing person. There's just no to her. Like, her whole character can be summed up with, I like smiling and love and being nice. She's substanceless. She's like a human Ewok. Cute and cuddly, but ultimately only there to advance the plot. It doesn't help that the conclusion of her and Finn's narrative irritatingly sees her do the stupidest, most naive thing I've ever seen in a blockbuster, when Finn attempts to crash his ship into the evil-ass laser beam death machine that will kill everyone they know, and she just stops him by casually smashing her own ship into his, which miraculously doesn't kill them both, and her justification is she didn't want him to die fighting what he hates, but rather they should all stay alive to protect what they love. What? Alright, listen here, you quirky little pixie-ass fuck. As far as you know, you just doomed everyone. Your pals find their way out of their situation in the end, but you didn't know that was going to happen. Pretty sure Finn was trying to protect everyone he loved in a self-sacrificial act. You're lucky some mad Deus Ex Machina is on your side, otherwise your little stunt would have killed you both, you mad dafty. Then, to add insult to injury, she kisses him, and I was like, how the fuck up, love? Where was any of that blossoming romance in the rest of the runtime? The chemistry between Finn and Rose is about as believable as that time my dad looked me square in the eyes and said, no really, I'll honestly stop drinking one day. On top of that, we have a naff bit where they survive a deathly explosion and imprisonment through the power of convenient editing, suddenly deciding to place the soldiers who were next to them at the other end of the ship in a total wait what moment, and a fairly fun, if not extremely anticlimactic showdown with Captain Phasma, which sees you go, oh, I guess she's dead then. Okay. I honestly think there'd be a lot less vitriol surrounding the film, even amongst its biggest naysayers, if these sequences were massively cut down, or perhaps even absent, because then the film wouldn't feel so tedious in its middle act. I'm not saying this for certain at all, but it almost feels like this was never meant to be a part of the film, and that the producers just insisted on all the new characters being included, and this was just all they had for Finn to do. Now you're probably thinking, hang on, I thought this was meant to be a positive review and a defense of the movie. And yes, while it's true I have major issues with this particular subplot and think all of the similar criticisms people have are entirely justified, I've got to say that I was absolutely in love with the rest of it, apart from a couple minor gripes here and there. As a whole, I'm amazed the film was as daring as it was. It subverted expectations massively by not playing to a risk-free formula to create surprising plot developments that were as unpredictable as they were engaging. But they also, for me at least, felt like extremely natural progressions to the story we've already been presented with thus far. My favourite aspect, in fact, is Luke Skywalker. Now I know some would disagree. A lot. But I thought his characterization in this was absolutely brilliant. Now buckle up, because me talking about Luke is practically a video in of itself. A lot of people really took issue with the representation of Luke in the film. Many are critical of this idea that the man who once saw the light in the most evil human being in the galaxy could be so cynical and jaded. To which I say, that's why it's compelling. This is Luke Skywalker, so the fact that he, of all people, has become disenfranchised and disenchanted with the Force makes for a great hook into the story, in the same way as all-American hero Hulk Hogan becoming a bad guy is considered one of the greatest heel turns in professional wrestling. Now, the main counterpoint to this that a lot of people are swinging around as supposedly the moment that ruined Star Wars, as if it hadn't already been ruined multiple times, is, yeah, but Luke would never kill his nephew. And you know what? I agree. So does the film. Luke did not think it was acceptable to cut down his own family member. He did not even attempt to kill Kylo. I feel like this is something people seem to be retconning in their criticism of the film, but Luke explains he had a single moment of madness that was brief and went as quickly as it came, an invasive thought, a small lapse of judgment which he immediately doubted. Had Kylo stayed asleep and not seen Luke with the saber, Luke would likely have put the saber back, never have killed him, and probably would have even saved him from the dark side, just as he had done previously with Vader. This is not remotely a stretch for his character, as these kind of momentary invasions of anger, fear, and the dark side is core to his decision making in the original trilogy. This image of Luke people seem to have as this kind of puritanical, good-natured, almost saint-like figure who would never, ever consider doing anything morally bad or driven by fear is entirely revisionist. Look at the original trilogy again. Luke has always had elements of the dark side in him. Think of the moment of blind rage when Vader says, if you won't join the dark side, then perhaps she will. Luke doesn't respond to this with a calm, oh, I think Vader can still be saved because I'm a geek hippie. Nah, he gans fucking mental. That was a lapse of judgment. He went into that scene wanting to save Darth Vader and saw all the light in him, but the second he said something that scared Luke and made him angry, Luke lost it and didn't care about any of those things. It was just for a brief moment, but in that instance, he actually attacked Vader. This is actually a darker move than what he does in The Last Jedi. He wanted and attempted to kill a family member in that moment, and only when he has Vader at his mercy and missing a hand does Luke realise, oh, I'm being a bit of a dodgy one here. In The Last Jedi, he considers it, but feels immediately ashamed the second he does so. This is actually a more peaceful and wiser Luke if you compare the two scenes. And in fact, I would argue when looked at closer, this heavily criticised bit of Last Jedi actually kind of mirrors this instant in Return of the Jedi. Hamill even seems to evoke the same facial performance. Look, see the darkness? See it pass like a fleeting shadow? Also, if you want to argue his moment of anger came in defense of a loved one in the originals, Luke saw the thoughts of Kylo and knew he was going to become a monster, one that would threaten Han and Leah and everyone in the galaxy. You don't think that counts as the people he loves? This was a natural evolution of a character. Honestly, it's good writing. The fact that he is this miserable hermit who has distanced himself from the Force and the responsibilities that come with it out of fear of his own failure makes his redemption in the final act and ultimate ascension earned and rewarding. Without his initial misstep and the self-imposed guilt that follows, what's his story? If he's just plucky old Luke from the originals who steps in to save the day, then he might as well just be relegated to a fan service cameo. In fact, I think the characterization of all the people in this movie, except Rose, is great. The heroes are the most human they have ever been in a Star Wars film. They're flawed, they make mistakes, they're brash and vulnerable, they don't always succeed in their endeavours, but we root for them anyway because they're ultimately good people. If your criticism of Rey in this one is that she's getting too good, then you need to look at The Force Awakens again. The biggest criticism of that movie, and one that I share, though don't get me wrong, I love Force Awakens too, is that there are no narrative stakes because Rey is perfect in every scene. She can match Kylo without ever having picked up a lightsaber. She suddenly knows how to fly the Millennium Falcon better than the guy who has owned it for 40 years. Everyone immediately loves her. She's almost like a self-insert fan character. She may get literally stronger in the plot of this one, but narratively this is countermeasured by seeing her come up against actual challenges, such as Snoke. Which brings us to another criticism a lot of people have, and that's, oh my god, Snoke died and I don't know anything about him. And yeah, isn't it mint? Look, Snoke's backstory does not matter. It has nothing to do with the main story. I don't care that when he was 5, he killed his space cat or some shit. This isn't about him. That's pure lore. To actually find out who he was could have only occurred through needless out-of-place exposition, and I can probably fill you in on what it was going to be. Something really, really evil, and also maybe he had a recognizable name. Isn't it so refreshing that our trilogy villain actually turned out to be Kylo, a character with motivations, a grounded narrative, and someone who is crucial to the story and grows more complex and interesting with each film, and isn't just Poundland Palpatine. Snoke is nothing more than a carbon copy of the Emperor. The bait and switch of killing him unexpectedly in the second movie in the trilogy is, in my honest opinion, a brilliant decision. The guy you thought was going to be the boring big bad whose sole purpose is to look like an angry testicle, say mean things to Kylo and ultimately be overcome in the ninth movie, actually turned out to be a massively unexpected red herring. That's cool and surprising and risky, and I don't understand why it's a bad thing. Yeah, they built him up in previous films and there was all this mystery around him or whatever, but that's what made the death all the more shocking. And they actually used that death to advance a character that mattered. Without Snoke controlling him, Ren is this unstable dog let off its leash in a power struggle over an army he doesn't know the first thing about. He's unorganized but unpredictable. He's power hungry and vengeful, and now he has the means to act upon his impulsive behaviors without restraint. It's good stuff. I felt everything was extremely compelling surrounding Luke, Rey, and Kylo actually. I loved that they fleshed out Rey's character with vulnerabilities. I loved her relationship with Kylo. I loved that there was no obvious good and bad guy and that each of them had these little shades of grey to their personalities. And in a non-narrative sense, I think the film overall was just really well put together. Like, it looks fucking great. Even the bad parts. I thought the vistas were stunning, I thought the action scenes were thrilling and exciting, even if the bombing at the start doesn't really make much sense with regards to gravity, but hey-oh. I thought the sound design and music was great, performances were awesome, I thought except for a couple of missteps, the comedy almost always landed, and I even thought the pogs were good. They're cute, I like them. And yeah, they're basically a toy ad in the film, but they're far less intrusive on the narrative than others. Also, as an aside, I think it's cool how this was how they got around the puffins native to the island. That's just nifty. Now, I feel at this point my opinions on the film are pretty clear, and while I do have a million other points to make, I would just end up going on and on forever, but this video is already too long and I don't want to stretch it out longer than it needs to be. That said, I know that there's some huge common criticisms levelled at the movie that I haven't addressed yet, but I don't feel like there's a natural way to bring these issues up without just essentially arbitrarily listing them and giving my counterpoints. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. Point 1, Luke's milk mustache. So a lot of people were pretty vocally critical that we spent some time watching Hermit Luke milk an alien. Yeah, that was kind of weird. But fuck it, there was no easy way to handle this because if you hadn't shown him fishing and guzzling alien titty juice, then I can guarantee you there would have absolutely been a vocal minority of self-professed movie buffs, you know the type, who would have went all, well actually, how could Luke have survived all those years in isolation? And if shutting those people up means we have to see our heroes slobber down the natural contents pulled from a scrotumy looking giraffe thing, then give me all the titty juice. In fact, give me more titty juice. I don't even think Luke should have poured it into a container. I reckon he should have just stared Rey down with an unblinking gaze while he straight up sucked it right from the source. Maybe give him a visible erection while he does it, you know, sell that real alpha male shit. Point 2, Leah floats through space. Yeah, it looked kinda dumb, I guess, in its execution, but it wasn't quite enough to take me out of it because conceptually this isn't actually that big of a deal. I don't know why loads of people are arguing that Leia has never prior been established to be force sensitive. That's not remotely true. I mean, it even happened in the last movie, which wasn't that long ago when she felt the death of Han through the force. Some people are arguing, yeah, but you can't use the force like that much, seemingly thinking it's like, I don't know, force flying, I guess. However, I would argue it's not that drastically powerful an action considering she's in space and so the lightest little push would just slowly glide her back to the ship since she's in zero gravity. Granted, Star Wars isn't always concerned with the physics of space, but I don't know. I didn't like this particularly just because the visual image was odd, but it wasn't a deal breaker for me. Point 3, why doesn't Holdon just tell Poe what's going on? So in a subplot I haven't actually mentioned yet because I didn't find a way to naturally bring it into conversation and knew I was going to talk about it at this point, is that after Leia is incapacitated, charge of the resistance goes to Holdon, played by Laura Dern. And Poe doesn't like Holdon because he thinks she doesn't know what she's doing, and he plans a mutiny because he wants to save everybody. Later, after the mutiny fails, ooh, there's a theme of failure again, it is revealed that actually Holdon knew exactly what she was doing, is an all-around hero who is going to save everybody, and is even willing to sacrifice herself to do so. One criticism I find just does not stand up for me is this whole idea of, well, why didn't Holdon just take Poe to the side and explain what was going on? I think a better question would be, why the fuck would she? That is not how the organized military systems work in almost any reality, including our own. There is a reason shit is on a need-to-know basis in any hierarchy like this. There could be leaks, there could be spies. Why would an army leader go to the man who was just demoted for his reckless actions that got a large number of their allies killed and go, this very specific person on a ship of thousands is absolutely who I should be detailing every aspect of my secret plan to? This doesn't happen. Ever. Anywhere. Not even in reality. Sure, it might have stopped Poe's mutiny if she did, but how was she to know he'd do something so batshit insane? And you know what else? She shouldn't have to explain herself to Poe, even if he hadn't just got lots of their friends killed. She is his superior. The fact that she doesn't actually explain herself makes her character stronger. It's insubordination that he even makes these demands of her, and she recognizes that and doesn't entertain it because, quite frankly, she has more important shit to be concerned about. His role is just to follow her and respect her decision making, even if he doesn't agree with it. Yeah, he doesn't do that, but as the opening established, he's kind of a well-meaning, if not brash and cocksure individual, so when this mutiny occurs, it's almost like it's a logical progression of the story and a character-driven narrative that makes perfect sense? Psh, what am I saying? She has purple hair, none of this is logical. Point 4. It's too samey. I mean, it's obviously not, or else we wouldn't have so many people complaining about the unexpected steps of Luke's character, the surprising nature of Snoke's death, the Leia Force use, etc, etc. Point 5. It's too different. I mean, it's obviously not, or else we wouldn't have people complaining about Rey's training being too similar to Empire, Yoda showing up, or that the place at the end looks like Hoth among other things. Point 6. Luke just dies at the end. Yeah, I don't personally understand why this is a criticism. I think it's quite profound, actually. The Force has always been deeply influenced by spirituality, and Luke essentially earns his own catharsis by learning from the mistakes of his past and finally becoming at peace. Some found it confusing in that they didn't really get how he died. Was it the effort of the astral projection? Did he just choose to die? I'd say ultimately it doesn't matter. It's not about how he died, it's about what the death represents. Closure, peace, and really, if you want to keep up the spirituality metaphor, ascension. I thought it was great. Point 7. Luke called it a laser sword and threw it away, and that means the movie hates Star Wars fans, and I disagree with things in this film because I'm a true fan, and he ruined Star Wars. No, this movie does not hate Star Wars fans. They did not set out to make a film and go, ooh, let's shit all over this property we just spent billions acquiring. That is absolute madness. And what? Yes, Luke calls it a laser sword, and that's the point. He's jaded, he's cynical. It's a brilliant subversion of expectations when he throws it away. That build-up, like, his character and his entire story is there in that moment. We learn so much about what he's became in a simple action, and it's a huge deal narratively and a great instance of visual storytelling because it's Luke doing this. That's not disrespecting Star Wars. It's telling a story. And if you didn't like it, that's fine, but to say that or any other action in the film is indicative of some kind of personal attack on you and your fandom is kinda arrogant, really. Dislike whatever creative decision you want, but just know that Rian Johnson didn't personally set out to hurt you. No one on the cast and crew even knows who you are. How precious do you have to be personally offended by the creative decisions you don't like, as if it's an attack on you? This is kind of the point I want to end this on, really, is just the whole addressing the fandom and the sense of entitlement that a horrible vocal minority of it has. I realise this isn't just a problem with Star Wars fans. I've expressed similar distaste in the past for the whole Marvel vs DC shtick in my Wonder Woman and Suicide Squad reviews, but with Star Wars I feel it's a different kind of problem. It's nerd elitism. People can't seem to understand that everybody has their own idea of Star Wars and their own opinions on what a Star Wars film should be. And when other people's opinions don't line with theirs, then they're somehow a fake fan or an idiot or a Disney shill. These individuals seem to get this idea into their heads that Star Wars is mine and mine alone. It's this sense of ridiculous entitlement that lets them feel they have every right to personally message and tweet the director with insults and threats, like he stole their toys at the nursery and then proceeded to piss on them and break them. Firstly, he didn't break your toys, they've been broken for years. Secondly, they were never your toys to begin with. I'm just going to spell it out for people who really don't get this, okay? Star Wars is not yours. Again, you can dislike any of the movies. There's plenty things in Star Wars I don't like. You can have valid criticisms that others may agree or disagree with, and that is fine. If you disagree with everything I've just said, that's 100% cool, and you can have totally healthy and fun discourse off the back of that disagreement. But when you act like a petulant child with this shit and say bollocks like a true Star Wars fan wouldn't like this, or insult people online over their opinions and creations, then you're a bellend. Keep on doing what you're doing by all means. I can't stop you, it's a free country, but know that I and many others think you're a bellend. And if you think nursing your own massive elitist nerd stiffy you have for yourself is more important than basic human decency, then that's your prerogative. Just be aware that you're fucking insufferable, and the only thing that's really ruining Star Wars is people like you.